Three glasses, three different names: whiskey, Scotch, bourbon. They look almost the same. Same amber color, same warm smell. Most people use the names interchangeably without a second thought. But here's the thing. One of these names is a category. One is a country's strict legal tradition. And one is named after an actual armed rebellion against the United States government. These three drinks share a family tree, but the differences between them come from war, religion, geography, and one very persistent myth that almost everyone still believes. Before we get into the differences, you need to know where the word itself comes from, because almost nobody knows this. Whiskey is not an English word. It comes from the Old Gaelic phrase "wishe beitha," which means water of life. Sometime around the 1100s, medieval monks in Ireland and Scotland get the credit for the earliest versions of this drink. They learned distillation from techniques that had traveled across Europe, originally used to make medicine and perfume, not alcohol. The monks adapted it, and the result was something rough, unaged, and used almost entirely for medicinal purposes. The earliest written record of whiskey in Ireland dates to 1405. In Scotland, the earliest record is from 1494, a royal order asking a friar named John Core to make what they called aqua vitae, water of life, translated into Latin. Whether the Irish or the Scots actually invented it first is still debated today, but both sides agree on one thing. It started as medicine in a monastery centuries before anyone thought to drink it for fun. Today, whiskey is the broadest term in the entire category. It simply means a distilled spirit made from fermented grain, corn, rye, barley, or wheat, aged in wooden barrels until it develops color and flavor. But almost every country that makes it adds its own personality. Irish whiskey tends to be smooth and easy to drink. Japanese whiskey is precise and delicate, shaped by a culture obsessed with detail. American whiskey is often bold and sweet. Canadian whiskey leans light and mellow. So when someone says whiskey, they're really talking about an entire global family, connected by one shared origin, but shaped differently depending on where it grew up. Scotch is where the rules get serious. It can only be called Scotch if it's made in Scotland. Anywhere else, no matter how identical the process, it cannot legally use the name. Scotch is usually made from malted barley, and Scotland's cool, damp climate slows the aging process down, giving the spirit a slower, more layered character. Some Scotch carries that smoky, earthy taste people call peaty, which comes from burning peat, a dense type of turf, during the malting stage. It's a tradition that goes back centuries in Scottish distilling. Not all Scotch is smoky, though. Depending on the region, Highlands, Lowlands, Islay, Speyside, the flavor can shift toward fruity, floral, or malty instead. Each region adds its own accent to the same basic spirit. By law, Scotch must age in oak barrels for at least 3 years. The Scots take this seriously enough that the rules are written into actual legislation, not just tradition. Bourbon's story starts with a tax revolt. In 1791, the new U.S. government taxed whiskey to pay off war debt. Farmers in Pennsylvania rebelled. By 1794, George Washington sent soldiers to crush it. To calm things down, the government offered farmers free land in Kentucky instead. Kentucky had rich soil for corn and limestone-filtered water. Settlers distilled that corn into whiskey, and aging it in new charred oak barrels gave it a sweeter, deeper flavor than anything made in Europe. The whiskey shipped out of a place called Old Bourbon County. The name stuck, even after the county lines changed. Today, bourbon is legally defined, at least 51% corn in the mash, aged in new charred oak barrels, nothing added but water. Once you understand where they come from, the taste differences make a lot more sense. Scotch tends to be drier and more layered. Smoky peat, dried fruit, honey, sometimes a touch of brine if it comes from a coastal region like Islay. Bourbon hits you with rounded sweetness instead. Caramel, brown sugar, vanilla, deep notes from that charred oak. It feels fuller and heavier in the mouth. General whiskey can land anywhere between the two, depending on the grain and the country. Even the glass shape changes the experience. Scotch is usually served in a tulip-shaped glass that concentrates the aroma, helping you pick up its more delicate layers. Bourbon, with its bigger, sweeter aroma, is often poured into a wider glass that lets those bold notes spread out. It's not about formality, it's about which shape gets the most out of what's actually in the glass. So in the end, whiskey, Scotch, and bourbon all come from the same root, quite literally the same Gaelic words for water of life. Whiskey is the umbrella, shaped differently by every country that makes it. Scotch is the strict tradition-bound Scottish expression, protected by law and centuries of peat smoke. And bourbon is the sweet, bold American descendant, born out of a tax revolt, a forced migration west, and a charred barrel that probably wasn't an accident after all. 3 drinks, 3 different stories, one shared beginning in a medieval monastery, centuries before anyone called it whiskey at all. That's what we do at Unknown Behind Known Things. Find the real story behind the things you thought you already understood. Subscribe for more and tell us in the comments, what should we look into next?